We now move to a very interesting segment, one where business leaders discuss the importance of leading with compassion. I welcome our panelists.
Thank you so much. Leading an organization in the last 1 year could have been the most challenging part for any leader. It tested nerves, it tested strategy, it tested resilience, it tested your inner strength. On one hand, you have to deal with the disruptions in the business, and on the other hand, there were humanitarian crises unfolding. So Radhika, how did you change your leadership style? Because everything changed. You had to do some kind of reset in terms of leadership also.
I have personally been a big advocate of a more emotional and vulnerable form of leadership well before COVID. I think anyone who is building a great business as a team is going to go through a lot in their journey, and COVID is just one example of what we'll go through as teams. And I think one thing I have learned over the last year and a half is that you need to make people a partner in your problems. So all of us go through low days and we lift each other up. But if you as a leader are going through a problem like mid-2020, we went through a period where financials looked really rough, and I actually opened up the financials of the company to a lot of the leadership very, very transparently. And when I did that, I realized they had better solutions than I did, and they were more proactive about cost than I could be. So that, I think, was a big change for me, and I'm very grateful that I did that. And I found digital ways to be connected to people.
Sandeep, in Indian promoter-run businesses, people look up to the promoter for answers.
Right. Yes.
So how did you deal with that? What was the thinking that you had that you went through? And second, what did you do about it?
You know, for us, we just magnified some of the things we used to do. So for example, you know, we are more people oriented than, let's say, system oriented, if I can say that. So let's say a change in MNC would be extremely difficult, for example, when we want to change let's say a simple thing like a medical insurance claim, but we used to overcome all that. We look at individual cases, do as it's required. So everybody was like personally taken care of. And I think it's a misconception that the boss or the leader should have all the answers. I think we just learned by being more vulnerable to your own teammates. I mean, they open themselves a lot more, and you form a better bridge. So I just being more human in these times, which I think as a legacy, as a family business, we were always there, but it got magnified. And this has helped. I think we are going to have lower attrition as we go forward, because people have seen that we stick with them, and we are a much more close family company than before.
The second wave was very dangerous. I mean, it took a humanitarian toll. At one hand, you had to deal with business issues, and second hand, CEOs were facing personal losses. What advice do you have for companies going forward?
I think more than advice, if I was to draw 2-3 anecdotes from what I saw, I think the best of leaders first gave people their time. I think it was important to make sure that even though the outcome might be the same, I think the way you get there can be different. So if you need a week off in between, take it. I think the second, and maybe slightly counterintuitively, is it was more inclusive. Because you were able to get people together easier, whether it was getting people from across time zones or across even different parts of India together on a call, it became easier. So I thought the discussion was more inclusive, the dialogue was more inclusive, and therefore leaders were able to drive a little bit more through consensus than earlier, where I think established forms of communication and hierarchy were kind of there. And I think the third thing was it required sharp prioritization to cut out everything that was not necessary. I think it was hard to justify a trivial activity, and therefore what you were doing was almost definitely the most essential. And therefore it was easier to tell a story of purpose about the activities that we are doing, and release the activities that we took a new lens to and said were actually not that important.
What did you do basically? How did you balance the business part and the personal part, and also the workforce problems?
No, firstly, we are also into manufacturing, so we had to go beyond our own employees to the society also. So as a first step for us to react was to see how the society and the ecosystem can be secured around us. So we have villages around us, so we had to set up hospitals, etc., because that was a need of the hour. So we were responsible enough to first take care of the society, and by all these hospitals and oxygen, whatever was required at that time. On the other side, our employees also were looking up to us, because there was a period of those 2 weeks where everyone wanted help. And I think what we did is from the management team, each one of us was part of a group, a Threema group or a WhatsApp group, to try and help each one with our own personal connections, whatever we could do to help them, their family members. And this was never part of any standard SOP in the company. But they could never imagine the leadership, trying to help them with a medicine or with a bed or with maybe trying to get an ambulatory support, or even doctors trying to support them in the consultation. This moved people, and in our experience, we have seen the emotional connect of our own team members have grown significantly with the company, with the leadership team. And as and when now this the call to come back, and when our productions are back, we are seeing productivity at a very high level. As I think also, as you mentioned, we are fairly confident the attrition won't be there, because they have seen the company go beyond the purpose of just selling cars or maybe doing a bit there, but what we did to the society, what we did to our colleagues. So I think this for us was also an experience. It was not planned, but it just came across and we were able to rise to the occasion.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sparing some time. It was a great panel. Really loved having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A big thank you to our panelists and Vinod. Moving on to the next set.